Hi guys, so today our job is to learn to multiply fractions and mixed numbers, which I think you're going to find a lot easier than adding and subtracting. One of the more difficult things about today's lesson is actually getting the notes together correctly. So you've got 2 pages, and we want to make sure that we're looking at the page side that says fractions by whole numbers on the bottom. And then the other one we want is the fraction by mixed. We're going to put those together so that fractions by whole numbers is on the bottom, fractions by mixed is at the top. And then when we flip this over, then it'll look like this. And we're going to line up fraction by fraction right above fraction by mixed. And then I'm actually going to adjust mine a little bit. So on the back side of this, I've got multiplying fractions on top of fraction by fraction. So again, on this side, I've got fraction by mixed above fraction by whole. And I'm going to flip this side down. This was on the back. And make a fold right here. And then up at the top, I'm going to staple those two together. If you need help with that, you can absolutely help me and I'll help you get those together correctly. Okay, so once our notes are together correctly, a couple of things to note about multiplying with fractions. First of all, we do not have to get a common denominator, which is great news. So when we're multiplying, there's absolutely no common denominators. We're not going to worry about common denominators at all. We're going to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. That if we have a mixed number, it will deal with it as an improper fraction. So you can see where that knowledge about how to change to improper fractions is going to come in handy here. And then we'll multiply straight across, numerator to numerator and denominator to denominator. So again, no common denominators. We're just going to multiply straight across on both the top and the bottom. And when we have mixed numbers, we'll change those to improper fractions. Just a reminder about how to do that. We take the whole number and multiply it by the denominator. So 2 times 4 is 8. And then we add the numerator. So 8 plus 3 gives us our 11. I don't have that there, do I? All right, so 2 times 3. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. This is 11 fourths. And then when we would, we'd multiply 11 times 2 and 5 times 4. And that's where this 22/20ths came from. All right, and we'll talk about how to do fractions by a whole number when we get to that section on our notes here. So let's go ahead and start with multiplying fraction by fraction. So you can just flip your paper up here, kind of fold it, and we're going to look at our notes here. So we'll talk about what this means, but the very first thing we're going to do is cross-reduce if possible. And if you do that, if you cross-reduce, you will not have to do any reducing at the end, except maybe to change from an improper fraction back to a mixed number. Again, we're going to multiply straight across, so numerator to numerator and denominator to denominator. No common denominators. Then, if you've cross-reduced, you won't have to reduce these, but you may have to change them from an improper fraction to a mixed number. If you didn't cross-reduce, then you may have to reduce these by putting them in lowest terms. All right, so let's look at a couple of our examples here and see what we're talking about when we say cross-reduce. So we're going to look at the numbers that are across from each other, and we're going to see if we can divide those by the same number. So as I look at these two numbers that are across from each other, I see 3 and 3 and 1 and 5. Well, 3 and 3 can both be divided by 3. So we're going to do that. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now you can only do this across. We can't do it from denominator to denominator. We could do it numerator to denominator, of course. That's just reducing to lowest terms, but not denominator to denominator or numerator to numerator. So a cross, we're looking at a cross. 1 and 5 don't have any common factors other than 1, so that wouldn't do us any good to divide those by 1. Now we're ready. We've cross-reduced. We're going to multiply numerator times numerator, so 1 times 1 is 1, and denominator times denominator, so 1 times 5 is 5. And so our answer then is 1/5. And note, since we did our reducing over here, we don't have to reduce here. All right, let's look at our next one. We want to go look at our numbers. So 7 and 2 don't have any common factors, but 6 and 3 can both be reduced by 3. So we're going to do that before we do our dividing, or our multiplying. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then we multiply straight across. 2 times 2 is 4, and 7 times 1 is 7. And that is in lowest terms, and it's not an improper fraction. All right, let's look at our next one. 3 and 9 can both be divided by 3. And this one, 8 and 2, can also both be divided by 2, so we can do cross-reducing in 2 ways here. All right, so 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Again, remember, it's got to be a cross, opposite numerator and denominator. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Be careful with your facts here. We're 8 divided by 2, so it's 4. 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times 3 is 12. And so our answer there is 1/12. Alrighty, looking at our next one. 1/2 times 1/3. Checking here, can't cross-reduce. Checking here, can't cross-reduce. And so I'm ready to just multiply. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 3 is 6. All right, why don't you pause the video and try these two on your own, and then start the video back up again and check to see if you did those correctly. All right, so here we go. We can cross-reduce right here. 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2, so we'll do that. We can't divide 1 and 5 by anything other than 1, so that doesn't change anything there. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 2 is 10. So we've got 1/10 there. And the last one, let's see how you did on this one. Did you see here that 4 and 4 could both be divided by 4, but 7 and 3 could not be divided by anything other than 1. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. If you get used to this cross-reducing, your multiplication facts are going to be the easier ones. 1 times 3 is 3, and 7 times 1 is 7, and we're in the lowest terms. So that's multiplying a fraction by a fraction. And I think you see that that's a lot easier than our adding or subtracting. Again, remember, no common denominators. That's one of the most common errors I see, is that people try to get common denominators when they're multiplying or dividing fractions, and that's just a lot of unnecessary work that will complicate things for you. So we don't need common denominators. Alrighty. I'm going to stop this video, and then we'll check in for the next video with fractions by mixed numbers.